Hi, I'm Miss Woldridge, and today we are going to assemble the Wizard model rocket. So make sure you've got all the supplies that you need. Obviously, you need your rocket supplies. You'll need a pencil, sandpaper, a ruler. I've got a mini one for today, scissors, glue, tape, and then tacky glue. Okay, I typically like the Aleene's tacky glue. It works better than Elmer's. So, all right, first step, you're just going to go ahead and cut open your bag. Okay, and carefully dump out all of the supplies. Make sure you've got everything. Okay, this instruction sheet, you don't necessarily need to look at it, but you will need to cut out a part from it, especially when we get down here to attaching the parachute and drawing the fin lines on the body tube. Okay, so to kind of go everything today, we've got the body tube. Now this is where the bulk of your rocket is going to be. And then in this bag, we've got different things like the spacer tube, okay? We've got the fins, that's what this balsa wood is in here. Your parachute, here's the actual ring that goes on the inside. You have the nose cone. And then this is a part that we'll need to help space things out, but we won't need to keep. Okay, so first things first, I'm just gonna go ahead and make sure all my supplies are open and everything is accounted for. Okay, and you've got a plug there as well. And this is the shock cord, and here's the streamer that will help to slow down your rocket on the way back down to Earth after being launched. Okay, so first step, we're gonna start with the body tube. So looking at the body tube, you can kind of see there's this sheen on it, this nice shiny coating, and we're gonna take our sandpaper, and you're going to finely remove the waxy coating. So you want to do it to where the gloss is gone, but you haven't caused any damage to the body tube. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, I'm very lightly pressing. Okay. So if you look, the waxy coating is mostly gone. Now there's still a little bit of shine that you can see, and I still need to do the other side. But what this does is it allows the paint to stick easier and later on, as well as your pencil markings for when we start attaching the fins. Okay, and I'm just going to go over it and make sure all the other glossy parts are gone. Okay, looks good. Okay, so you do have a little bit of a rough surface, but that's not going to be too big of a deal. All right, so that's the first step, is just sanding the body tube. You're also going to want to sand the nose cone as well. Now I know this is a little bit weird, but your paint, especially the acrylics, will stick better when you've sanded it to give it a rougher surface to grip onto. Now this one you can press a little more firmly with. All right, so looking at it, again, the waxy coating is gone, but you can still kind of see the roughness there. Okay, we're gonna set the nose cone aside, and the sandpaper we no longer need. All right, so then next is marking the body tube. So this is where your instruction set comes in handy. And so I've got my scissors here. You need to cut out on the outside edge of the rectangle. Do not cut this spotted line here. You need to save that. So I'm going to cut just a little bit excess around and make sure I stay within the lines. Okay, and then I'll cut out the excess in just a minute. And you'll set that aside. You will need your instructions again later. Okay, and I'm cutting out this very bottom edge. It does not need to be precise, but I'm going to go and cut off that tiny bit of excess. Okay, so you've got this. And if you notice, up close there's different letters. FL, FL, LL, and FL. So FL stands for fin line. This is when you're going to attach your fins later, almost like the wings of the rocket, okay? And the LL, what that stands for is the launch lug. Now this piece of equipment, you're like, it's a thin tube. Well, this is what keeps the rocket on the podium better so that it is easily launched and can launch upright. Okay, so I'm gonna pick one end of my rocket to be the bottom, okay? And what you do is, if you need to, you can grab your tape here and do a tiny little piece of it to make sure that this stays down, okay? And then wrap it to cover the other side. And you see where these lines are? You need to make sure that those match up nice and evenly. You don't want any shifting in that, because this is going to help make sure you get your fins on straight later on. Okay, so we've done that. I've got my lines all matched up, and now I can begin marking the body tube. So first things first, you need to label bottom and top. Now the top side of your rocket is going to be the end opposite without the paper. So I'm just going to draw the letter T. And don't worry about any pencil marks. You can always cover that up with paint later. And then down here, I'm going to make sure I write B for bottom. That way I can keep things organized later. Okay, join me over here to the wall. Let me show you how the next step's done. Okay, so I've got this here, and it's really easy to use a door frame to kind of help you as a straight edge, because doing this on the table, it's okay. So I'm going to line up the line in the corner here, and I'm going to make sure this matches up. Okay, and you're going to take your pencil line and run it all the way up and down, straight up and down your body tube, and all the way to the very bottom too. Okay, and now we're going to rotate it and keep doing the same thing until you've done all the lines. Just straight up, do it at the very bottom. Keep going. Straight up. Now this line right here, there's no letters, so you don't need to label it. Just skip over that one for now. Okay, and we are going to go up and all the way down. All right, let's go back to the counter. Okay, so the reason there's different letters is because it's important to understand what parts go on which line. So here's what we are going to do. Where it says FL, I'm going to label that line FL. Don't be afraid to write big, okay? Here's the next one. That one's also an FL. This one here, this middle one, the dotted line, you can make your line dotted, or just be sure that you write LL, okay? And then this one, FL. Now again, FL is going to be for the fins, and L is going to be for the launch lug. Okay, so once you've done that, you can take off this paper tube. You no longer need that. So I'm just going to tear it off. Okay, now there is a gap where I've got these lines, but we're not going to worry about that right now. Okay, you don't need to connect the dots or anything. It's fine. Now, the next step, what we're going to do, you've got a few options. So on the spacer tube ruler right here, make sure your 0 lines up with the bottom of the tube. You're going to shift that down just a little bit. Okay, and we need to mark 1/4 inch. So 1/4 is only 1/4 of this. And that mark, let's see, here is 1/2, and we're going to break it down just a little bit here. Okay, so you are going to take your pencil and make a circular line all the way around. Okay, and make sure it's about fairly straight. It does not have to be perfect, but we just need to make sure it's up to 1/4 inch. All right, set that aside for now. So the next steps, I like to reuse the wood that comes out of this, but you're welcome to use a popsicle stick too. I just don't have any with me right now. Very gently and carefully remove the fins, okay, from the balsa wood here, from the template. And if you need to, your teacher can offer you like some scissors to kind of help if you're worried that they're going to snap. What we are going to do is I want you to keep your fins in your bag, because your bag should have your and your partner's name on it, okay? And you're going to put that in there for safekeeping so you don't lose any pieces, which honestly, a good idea would be to store all your other little pieces that you don't need today. Okay. All right. This is just extra wood, but I want you to keep the longer piece that came out of this set. All right. So we are going to mark on here. Okay. We need to mark and make sure that we've got this measurement approximately, okay? And if you need a precise measurement, that is about 2.5 inches long. So I'm going to mark on this stick that we want this to go into the body tube about 2.5 inches. Because that's what our spacer is for. Okay, so the next step, we are going to start using the tacky glue. And in this case, glue, less is more. You do not want to gob it on. However, you do want to make sure that you've got a nice coating on the inside. Because this piece right here, if this piece falls out of your rocket during launch, during fall down, your engine can go through the top of your rocket and cause it to explode. Well, explosions, those are something to talk about. You don't want that happening to your rocket. Okay, so here's how we do this. You are going to find and locate the bottom of your rocket. This is where the engine is going to go. Make sure you find that bottom mark. Okay, so I found the bottom of my rocket. I'm going to get it ready to use. Okay, I've got my craft glue. I'm going to go ahead, and you might have to do this a couple times. I'm going to go ahead and add some glue just to the end here. Okay, a nice round gob. Okay, and I'm going to take it and use the tube and push it to the center without sliding the glue on the edge. Notice I still have space in between that and the edge. And you're going to put it up to that line. You don't want to go past there. Okay, press it to the side and smear it a little bit. You could probably do about a half turn, set everything down, and add some more glue. Okay, one more pea-sized dot will work. Okay, that's probably enough. Okay, and then you are going to do it again. Press it to the top and spread until you've made it all the way around. Now, the good thing to do would be to look inside and double check that you can see a shiny edge around around all the surfaces. Okay, you should be able to see a shiny ring in there. If you're worried about it, you could do one more little thing of glue, just a little bit, or if you missed a spot, which I think I did, I'm going to go back and find that spot. Okay, and so take a look at the inside of it and smear that edge right. Okay, so here's what's next. You are going to make sure there's no glue right here, and if you got glue on the end of that, you need to take a tissue and wipe it out now. You do not want this getting stuck at the end. This step all needs to be completed on the first day. So you're going to place the green spacer tube in there. In the bottom of the rocket, make sure you did that. Okay, if not, you'll need to relabel what top and bottom are later. Take your spacer tube, and it's going to line up to where the end just barely, and I mean barely, it's a very snug fit. Try not to crush the bottom of your body tube. Okay, get that in there gently. If you need help, you can ask your teacher if you're worried you're going to crush it, but for the most part, you can trust yourself. Now, you're going to push this in, okay? You're going to begin to feel some tension, okay, as you continue to get further, all the way up to that 1/4 inch line. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. Do not go any farther than that. So what that does is if you look in the middle of the tube, I don't know if you can see it. Maybe you can. Can you see it? There should be that green circle in there. You could also take a look yourself. Okay, it's kind of hard to see, but it's in there now. At this point, you need to let it dry on the inside. So do not do anything with the inside at the bottom yet. Okay, so the next step that we are going to work on is attaching the parachute and the nose cone. So this step, you can kind of have a different working order. So I'm going to come back to my bag here where I've got these supplies. Okay, I'm not going to attach anything to the outside just yet, but we do need to attach the shock cord, which is this, okay, the parachute, the nose cone, and the nose cone plug. Okay, now here again, you're going to need to use glue, and I've got this right here. I'm going to use that stick that I had, okay, to help me apply the glue. We need a tight seal, so it's okay to do just a little bit excess on this one. Okay, I am actually going to wipe the inside of the cone rather than this. So, very carefully on the very end here, you're going to smear that glue, okay, till it makes a nice coating all the way around. Okay, and double check it before you slide that into there. Okay, you can place this in. Okay, now mine was a little loose fitting. I may or may not want to go in and put more glue. Yeah, that didn't stay. Okay, it was very easily pulled out. So let's just go ahead and try to add some more glue here. You can test yours. If you give it a spin and it was a little too easy to spin, that's probably a good indication that you gotta add just a teensy bit more. You're gonna get messy. Don't worry about it. You can always go wash your hands. As long as you don't drop everything. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna place that back in, and we are just going to push it in and let this dry. Do not touch this. You're not gonna attach these pieces yet today. Let this all set on day one. So by the end of day one, hopefully you've completed marking your body tube. You've sanded it first. You marked it, you removed that paper, okay? And you've inserted your engine block. This will keep the engine from going up through the top. And you've glued in the plug to the nose cone. That's a good stopping point for the first day. Okay. So when we get to day two, and I'm just going to go ahead and start this, but you might notice some problems that happen if you continue to try to work today. So you've got your nose cone on day two. Once your stuff is dry, you can try to sand off any excess glue that seeped out. But I am going to go ahead, and it doesn't matter how long you thread this through here, but thread enough just so you've got room to tie it. You're going to do kind of like a tennis shoe knot, okay, where that wrap around, through, under, and I want you to do it twice, just in case. Okay, so try not to pull too hard on the plug. If you notice, I'm pulling sideways rather than this way, because I don't want that piece to come out. Oh, and it just tried to. Okay, so if you did a really nice tight knot like I did, you can just leave it at once. I'm just, in case I'm worried about it, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tie it one more time. Okay. Oh, see, this is why you don't want to do it on day one, because it keeps trying to come out. Okay, so I've got that little excess. I am going to go ahead and snip that just close enough to where it's not overlapping. So whenever this is dry and this end goes in, all your parachute's going to be wrapped inside and kept at the top. Okay, but we'll worry about that in a little bit. Okay, now this next part is a little bit complicated, so pay attention and pause the video as much as you need to. I'm going to go ahead and cut out this piece. Okay, now this one, it does not matter if you cut precisely, okay, but make sure number 1 is smaller than number 2, and number 3 is your largest section. All right, so I've got the piece that I'm working with for the shock cord. So I'm going to kind of set this on a background just so you can see what's going to happen. I like to pre-fold things to make it kind of easier to fold later on. Okay, so I just folded on those dotted lines. Now, here's what you do. You are going to take your bottle of glue, okay, and place a nice glob here on the number 2. Like that. Okay. Now, the other end of your nose cone, or I'm sorry, not your nose cone, your shock cord goes here, and you are going to place it onto the glue of number 2, okay. Number 1, this little piece here is going to get folded over into the middle. Okay, and you're going to kind of have to bend your cord a little bit. So bend it and fold. Okay, press down. All right, we want to make sure that this piece is nice and secure. You might have to press for a good minute or so before it likes to lay down. Okay, so that's good. And now what we're going to do is you can place another dot of glue, okay, especially if none leaked out. I'm doing just a little dot up here. Okay, on number 3 is where you're going to fold back to the middle. Make sure it lays flat. Okay, and make sure your cord here sticks out in the middle of the paper. So once you've done that, press it down for a little while, let it kind of dry, okay? All right, so hopefully it did not get stuck to this paper. Okay, so for the next part, we're gonna check our instructions to make sure we've got the right measurement going down. Sorry, cat again. Okay, so it says place 1.5 inches down. All right, so here I'm gonna use my little extra craft stick that I got and measure 1.5 inches. Okay, so here's gonna be my new marking. It can be an approximation. It does not need to be exact. That's pretty close. Okay, so that is how far I'm going to insert this into the top of the body tube. Okay, so here's what I like to do. I like to kind of figure out to see what works best. Okay, so I typically like to turn this over so I don't have my gluey side. And you can use a fresh stick if you need to. All right, so I'm going to use this stick to kind of help me guide it through the end of the top of the body tube. So I'm going to kind of curve it around a little bit because the inside of the body is also curved. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to place glue on the side facing up. Okay, a nice little glob. Okay, and we're going to place that into the very end of the rocket. You are going to go as far as it will let you, hopefully down 1.5 inches. And this stick will kind of help you. And so what you need to do now is kind of press it along the wall. I need to go a little further with mine. Okay, I press it along the wall. Ooh, I broke it. Okay, and I hold it there for about 30 seconds. All right, so you're gonna hold it there for about 30 seconds and then release by taking this out, and your parachute cord should now be attached on the inside. Okay, so we are gonna leave this part alone for now. Later on, I will show you how to fold the parachute paper, but for now, let's just go ahead and attach it. So all you need to do is you're gonna lay a piece under here, okay? Just enough, maybe an inch or so. It does not need to be precise. We are going to get some tape and make sure the cord is flat inside. So you're going to do a piece of tape here to tape it to your parachute and the shock cord together. Okay, that way it's not going to go sliding. You can do about 2 inches down. You could do closer to the nose cone. You can try out different things. Where you put it will kind of help with different amounts of drag force on the rocket on its way back down. Okay, but the whole point is we want it secure so it doesn't rip off. That way it's easier to fall and possibly catch your rocket. Okay, so we're going to fold this part over now that that's secure and tape it as well. So when you are ready to assemble your rocket, I will show you later how to fold this. Right now, you do not want to put this in your rocket because wet glue. You just smeared all that down there. This is going to get caught, it's going to get stuck, and it could rip. So let's just leave that out hanging for now. All right, on to the fins and the launch lug. So this will be fun. You kind of get to pick which order you want to do. I like to save the fins for the very last step. All right, so our launch lug, let me look at my instruction set to figure out how far our launch lug is going to be. Okay, in the instructions, it looks like they put on the fins first. That's fine. Let's go ahead and do what they did. Actually, no, let's do launch lug first. I find it easier over the course of the years. Okay, so find the bottom of your rocket. It's got that engine block in it. It's not the side with the parachute. Go to the line labeled LL. This is the launch lug. Okay, so just above where you had all that tape, okay, you're gonna measure about 1 inch up from the tape, okay? Or you could measure a total of 3.5 inches, okay? That will be where your launch lug ends up. Okay, and so this range between 3.25 and 4 is a very good spot to put your launch lug. So we're going to place a thin line of glue, and I find it easiest, okay, I'll move it, it's okay. If you put it on the launch lug itself. Now, the person who does this needs to have very steady hands, okay, to make sure it doesn't go rolling around. And you need to make sure that it is on there straight and not crooked at all. If the launch lug ends up crooked, your rocket may have trouble leaving the podium on launch because it'll get caught or snagged. Okay. You may have to have your partner help you hold this. So I'm going to take the glue side down. Thank you, partner. Okay, I'm going to take the glue side down. I like to let it air out for a few minutes. 30 seconds probably would be best. You can accelerate that by blowing on it a little. It gives the glue time to get a little tacky, okay, or a little stickier. You're going to lightly press it. Hold for about 30 seconds. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm not going to hold this, but keep it pressed on there for about 30 full seconds. Okay, and release. Now, if you notice, I'm going to double check while my glue is still wet. Double check. Now, if you notice, my launch lug is not quite centered, so I'm going to very slightly move it over just a smidge. Okay, and that way it is more centered. I'm going to press down again to make sure that glue is nice and even. But if you notice, it's straight up and down. There's no curving in it, okay? It's not crooked. Okay, onto the fins. Let's set this aside to... All right, you should have 3 of your fins. So here is how the things are going to work. This side right here is the one that attaches to your rocket. You need to make sure that it is a smooth but straight edge. The other ones you can kind of curve out to help with aerodynamics and help it fly better. So here's where your sandpaper comes back in. You are going to very gently take this side of the wood, okay, and do sanding like this. You do not want to shove it back and forth, okay? That's when we do the other parts a little bit easier. All right, so if you notice before it kind of had all this brown edging and now it's nice and clear. I've probably sanded enough. I'm gonna do just one more to make sure. Okay, blow away any dust. Now, the other parts, it is up to you on the shape that you want to do for your fins, but your top and your side here need to be smooth and round. So I'm going to take this at an angle, and here's where you can do this. Do not press heavily. You need to go gently so you don't break your fins. Okay, so I'm going to kind of do that, and then as I go, I'm going to pick it up a little, turn it up a little, sand to the other side. Okay, and keep doing that. Kind of go back and forth. Again, very gently. All right, and now I'm going to check that. So if you notice, the brown part disappeared also. Let's compare it to the other one. So the other end, okay, it used to be flat and now it's got this nice curving to it. If you want to make a nicer gliding plane, you are going to sand it a little bit more, even more curved edges. Okay, you don't want it into a nice fine point. That's not going to help your flight, but a round edge to help cut through the wind a little bit easier is always helpful. Try to make sure it is even. If you don't do it evenly, you may get some spinning on your rocket, which could look cool. We don't know. but it depends on how the wind is that day. Okay, and the last part that you are going to sand is this tiny edge right here. So I am going to do the same thing, same angles. Okay, this one's a little bit harder. You kind of have to hold the paper a little more steadily. I'm gonna go the other side and turn and twist. It's just a little easier to strike it as this. Okay, so I sanded off that end. It's more rounded and smooth now, but I want to round out this corner because this is where it's going to glide through the wind. So I'm just gonna kind of do the same thing I was doing, but now turning it so it can very easily get a nice rounded edge. Okay, so take a look. Nice and round, that'll glide through the end. You can kind of see the rounding on the edges here. So you need to make sure your other fins are going to look exactly like this one. And the easiest way to do that is to line them up. Okay, you're going to do your best to line it up. Okay, and you could do one at a time, you could do two at a time, it's up to you. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna go ahead and try 3 just to kind of smooth it out and make it faster. But you guys should have enough class time to get this done. Okay, I'm gonna line it up with the edge that I did not sand and save that one for the very, very end. Okay, and so let's go ahead. We're gonna do the striking like this. Okay, so I got all that darkness to disappear. And now I'm going to flatten the edge over here. I think I mainly just want to do this for the corner to make sure I get the corner nice and even. So I'm going to go ahead and keep sanding it just for that corner. You need to have a tight grip so that way it doesn't get taken apart. Okay, so I've got that nice round edge now on all 3 pieces, okay, and then I'm just going to take the other ones and individually clean them up. So again, just kind of turning it as you go. Okay, nice and smooth, very end, don't forget. Okay, and clean up that one little edge that kind of got left over. All right, that looks great. Okay, and we can compare it with the other one and see any misalignments, which that looks pretty good. I could probably take off a hair over here, but I'm not going to. That's close enough for me. I'm not too picky. All right, we're going to continue sanding this edge. And again, be very careful not to press too hard. The sandpaper should do the work for you. All right, very good. I think this side needs cleaned up just a little bit. Okay, let me compare it to my original. And so I think that's also lined up pretty well. That looks good to me. All right, attachment time. Okay, so this should have some time to dry, but you still need to be very careful. So it's always great to have your partner help hold it, so that way you guys can use the lines, okay, and glue it to the lines while the other person keeps the rocket steady. You do not want to let it go rolling around. Thank you, partner. Okay, so clean off any sawdust that you had right here at the end. And in this case, I find it best to apply the glue to the edge of the fin. So make sure you locate the proper edge. You need the wide end, not the narrow side or the long end. So we're going with the second shortest piece. Alrighty. Okay, so your range Okay, you get to pick anywhere in this range, okay, that you have here, but be sure not to do it on the launch lug line. Pay attention. So I'm going to have my partner roll it so I can make sure I'm on the fin line. Okay, so you can have, as you can see, this fin is not as wide as the range that you've got, but you can stick it anywhere within there. You can do it lower down if you want your rocket to stand tall. You can do it up here. I like to go lower down for myself, okay, but not quite to the end. Now, you need to make sure that this is all the way steady. And I probably should have blown on the glue before putting it on here. We're going to see. But you're going to press and hold this very steadily, and your partner can let go. But you're going to press and hold it very steadily for at least 1 minute. So when your teacher is getting ready to launch the rockets, they're going to look for ideal wind conditions, which you want a less windy day. You don't want it to be too windy, okay? Or else your rocket might blow onto the roof of the school or into the highway. Then you couldn't get to take it home. All right, so that's been about a solid minute. You need to make sure that you did it straight and flush with the rocket and not tilted or twisted in any way. So take a look. That's your first fin. And now you're going to go ahead and do the other sections, and we're going to go ahead and pause the video and we'll pick back up after achieving the other ones. I've finished attaching all of the fins, and so as you are doing this, make sure that they are in line with the body tube. You don't want them tilting or leaning any specific way. And if you mess up, do not be afraid to take off one of the fins, wipe the glue away with a tissue on both the tube and the fin, and then continue adding glue and continue marking it onto the tube, okay, or placing it onto the tube. Now, at this point, you need to finish for day 2, and there's nothing else to do. Your next day can be done for painting. So here's what we accomplished in day 2. So we finished attaching the shock cord to the nose cone, and we used the paper on the inside to get the shock cord attached, and then we went ahead and attached our streamer. And then we went to the launch lug line and added this white tube, which will help guide our rocket before it leaves the podium. And then finally, we sanded, glued, and added our fins onto the rocket. Now, if you noticed while I was adding the first fin on, I put glue on the fin. And again, less is more. You want just enough to spill over onto the edge, but you do not want gobs, okay, leaking over to the sides. Now, make sure that the tops all have glue covered, because when this rocket launches, the wind can sometimes tear a fin off if you've got too much gap here. So right here, I've got just a little bit of gap between the fin, the body tube, and the glue. That little amount is probably okay, but make sure it's flat and flush against the body so you don't have any ripping or tearing of your fins. Okay, so on day 2, what's best is that you store this overnight to let it dry. Your teacher should have a rack or something of the like that has screws on it, okay, that you can hold and keep your rocket upright. Now, if you have too much glue, your fins may start sliding down the body tube, and you don't want that. So just the right medium amount. If you're worried about it, you can always ask your teacher. Okay, and so let's pretend like we're going to go ahead and do day 3. Ideally, I would have let this sit overnight at least and moved on to day 3 for the rocket. So day 3 is really all about painting and designing your rocket, and so this will be exciting. So I have got my parachute here, okay, and I'm going to show you how to put this inside, because you don't want paint to end up on the parachute or it might get stuck in your rocket. Okay, we have everything attached. We are going to fold it in half and in half again. And you need to be very careful not to get your fins on the table. So have someone help you hold this. I'm talented enough to hold this myself, because I've done this experiment many years in a row. Okay, so once you've done about 3 folds, you can take the rest and kind of roll it tightly, okay, into the rocket. Now your inside glue should be dry. Do not do this on day 2 when you just put in that paper, okay, or else yours may get stuck on the inside. Okay. All right, so I've got this. I'm going to guide the rubber into the body tube there. And then I'm going to sit this just inside. You can use the end of a pencil to help you press that in. You don't want it to go too far, okay? And you're going to store it like so. Okay, and voila, your rocket is ready to paint. Now, when you get ready for launch day, there is going to be an engine that you need to put in, and there's going to be some paper that you fold and put in. And I'll kind of show you what that would look like. It almost looks as if it's like a tissue. So I will go grab a tissue just to represent what it's going to look like. It's fire retardant paper. And so when the engine ignites, okay, it's going to create a lot of heat really quickly. You don't want your parachute on the inside or your streamer burning up, or else it's going to poof, okay, and you won't have a way for your rocket to fall safely back down to Earth. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remove, and very carefully. See, this is what you don't want to do. You don't want the glue to come off by trying to do that too soon, okay, or else your cap is not going to hold. So again, I'm doing this all in one night. All right, so let me grab a tissue. You can stay over there. So your teacher will have something that resembles a tissue. Okay, it is not a tissue. Do not put tissues inside the body tube. This is just for example. So they're going to give you kind of a rectangular sheet of this paper. Okay, and what you're going to do, you're going to crumple it into kind of a loose ball. Okay, so you crumple, crumple, crumple. Okay, and then you are going to place it in the top of your body tube. Use a pencil to guide it down. You're going to get it about midway down. You're going to do 2, 3, maybe even 4 of these little balls on the inside. Okay, and so you can get it about midway to where your launch lug is, as long as there's room between the engine, the paper inside, and then your streamer. And with that, you'll wrap up your streamer once again after you're all done painting. Okay, and on launch day, that's when you add the paper. You fold it up like we showed you earlier. You roll it very tightly, make sure that it'll be able to pop out easy. Stuff that inside, add your nose cone, and you're done. And have fun on launch day. I hope it turns out really well for you, and I hope you have awesome stories to share later. All right, thanks.